Hi everyone, I think I'm back. I'm not sure how the audio is going to be because I've had to change to an onboard mic. So let me know what the audio is like. I've got another mic system that I use with a boom mic, but it's run out of the batteries. Let me just switch on to my site so I can see if it's come up. And then just let me know if you can hear me okay, guys, because I'm interested to know how the sound actually is through this onboard mic. Whether it's a bit echoey or not, I'm not actually sure. So just let me know if it is okay, and I'll continue on. I want to talk about DXOMARK's review of the Sony A9 that has just come out. Well, it's this afternoon here. I was just down having a coffee and I was just checking some news, and I got an email to say that the Sony A9 review had come out by DXOMARK. So I wanted to talk to you all about that to see how it actually went. And it's interesting when you're looking at this review, how close it sort of matches what I've found with using the Sony gear as well. So yeah, let me know. I know there's a few watching now. Can you let me know if the audio is okay? Just to say hi, just say yeah, it's fine, or whatever. Whether it's too loud or too low, because I'm using an onboard mic for this one rather than this boom mic that's just above me. So let me just quickly know if it's okay, and I'll continue on anyway in the meantime. Now, according to this report, the DxO have marked the overall score of the Sony A9 a 92, which actually is a really good mark overall. The A7 II was 90 that was rated, and the A7R II I think was 98. So clearly it's not rated as high as what the A7R II is, but these two cameras are for different purposes. So it's interesting, and they're saying, if you look at the results of this, that it is actually a very, very good score. And I'll take you through that, what they're actually saying the ratings are and how they compare to other cameras, and we'll have a discussion about that, because I think it's pretty interesting. I did do a live talk this morning, but clearly this has come out since that live talk. Thanks Anthony, so it's fine. I'm glad the audio is okay. So the overall score was 92, and the portrait color depth they're saying is 24.9 bits. They're saying the landscape dynamic range is 13.3. Now that's interesting because DP Review had the dynamic range at 12, so there's clearly a big difference here in what the dynamic range is. I've done a test with doing, and I did in one of my live broadcasts where I showed a recovery from a wedding that I did. I deliberately underexposed, and I brought that back, and I found the recovery actually was very, very good. It's not quite up there to the A7R II, but it's good enough. You just can't underexpose as much as what you could with the A7R II, but it still does have a really, really great recovery. So when you're looking at these results, they're also saying the sports, the low light of this is very, very strong, and it's 3517, and that's clearly because Sony have targeted this as a sports camera. This is also why it tends to be a great wedding camera as well, because in weddings I am often dealing with very low light situations, especially in receptions and things like that. Excuse me, or low light wedding venues, you know, in a church or something like that, where you've got to start raising the ISO, particularly if you can't use on-camera flash. So it can be a real advantage with using things with low light. And the ISO of this is really, really quite strong. And they're actually looking at it, it's pretty close to what the A7S was, which is amazing when you think that, you know, that this is a 24 megapixel camera, whereas the A7S was only 12. So, you know, that's a great result from Sony, what they're doing. Now, if you scroll down, they're saying these are the things, how it compares overall. So you can see that the overall score of the Sony A7S was 87, the Sony A9 is 92, the Sony A7R II is 98, which is really, really high, and the Pentax K1, which is also a really good camera, is 96. Portrait modes, you can see that they're all fairly close. Landscape, you can see here that the Sony A7R II has about half a stop advantage over the A9, which has 13.3. They're saying the A7R II is 13.9 as the ratings there. And the results for noise, though, they're saying that here it's 3517. It's not quite as good as the A7S II, but it's a fraction better than the A7R II in ISO performance, and it's clearly better than the Pentax K1. So these are interesting scores here, and they're actually saying that on unprocessed RAW files, it gives excellent color depth of over 20 bits and good color depth over 17 bits at ISO 1600 to 6400 respectively. Dynamic range is even more impressive, with the A9 benefiting from the same performance uplift at mid ISO sensitivities as the A7R2, because I found the A7R2 is an amazing low light camera. It actually works a lot better than a lot of people give it credit for. And I think this is actually, it is a bit better, which these results show anyway, that it is a fraction better than that as well. It also mentions too that it's so good in camera or post-processing JPEG processing, and I mentioned that this morning on the discussion today, that I've found the JPEG processing of the A9 is outstanding, and it's even making me consider sometimes switching to JPEG. Now I am shooting RAW and JPEG, so I have got the RAWs to fall back on, but the JPEGs are amazing. Well, let's scroll down and we'll have a look at some of the other things that they're saying here. Just let me check to their... No, well, they're talking about the other cameras a little bit later on, so I'll discuss those a little bit later on, how it compares to the Canon and the Nikon D5. So these are the overall scores. When you can look at these yourselves, and I'll put this link in the comment box so you can actually get to this article if you're interested in reading it yourself, because I'm not going to go through all the details of everything on there, but clearly it's similar dynamic range to the A7 II, and I found the A7 II to be great in the dynamic range department anyway. It's similar to that, but the ISO performance is much better, especially as you start to raise the ISO up. It really leaves the A7 II way behind. And I've found, since I've been using it for wedding and some portrait photography just recently, I've been really happy with the A9's performance, and this is sort of backing up what I was finding with it as well. So just say hi guys if you are watching. I can see there's a few there watching now. Now, compared to the Canon EOS 1DX Mark II and the Nikon D5, I say Nikon, you say Nikon, I suppose, or it's Nikon, I always get confused. The DxO sensor scores for the Sony A9, it's reading at 92. Now the Canon EOS is 88 and the D5 is 88 as well. So clearly overall, if you're looking at this camera overall, it is a better camera than the Canon or the Nikon. Now there's some things where it's talking about where the Nikon can be a fraction higher or better, and there's also areas where they're saying the Canon will be a fraction better. But what they are saying is that the overall score, the overall use of this camera is superior. So we'll look at that anyway. Now the dynamic range for the Sony A9 is 13.3. The Canon was 13.5. So the Canon is a fraction higher than what the Sony is. But the dynamic range is better, clearly better than what the D5 is. And if we're looking at low light, though, sports, the Sony A9 is the best out of the lot of them. If you're looking at low light ISO, it's by far the best. And it's saying that it comes out on top against the Canon 1DX and the Nikon D5 with an overall score of 98 compared to 88 points for the other cameras. While the D5 just has the edge of color depth and the 1DX is just ahead in dynamic range, the Sony A9 is more consistent overall at the 3 base ISO, offering very good results in all 3 categories. So it's stronger in all 3. It may not win in one of them, but it's stronger overall, which probably means it's a better overall camera as well, which does sort of back these reviews that people have been done, like when Max Europe did their review where they were shooting out with that runner. I can't remember the other gentleman's name, but that backed that up as well, saying how well it worked and how clean and everything it was. So it is backing up what a lot of these people have been finding using it before. And like I said, I used to have the Nikon D4S, and clearly this camera is better than what I had there. So, you know, it sort of backs up what I've been finding as well. Another thing that they're saying, the signal to noise ratio on printed image are almost exactly the same between the Sony mirrorless sensors, the A9, A7R, showing the most improvement over the A7 II. So they're saying that it is an improvement over the A7 II. They're saying the Sony A9 offers slightly improved signal-to-noise ratios at lower ISO sensitivities compared to the Canon 1DX2 and the Nikon D5. So clearly at low ISOs, the Sony is a lot cleaner, a lot better down. You know, if you're running at 50 to 100 ISO, it's much better than what the other cameras are actually showing. Well, this is what DxO have been showing anyway. I'm going to keep scrolling down because I don't want to make this too long. They're saying that the A7R2 and the A7 II offer around half a stop advantage in dynamic range at lower ISO sensitivities up to 400 ISO. So if you're dealing up to 400 ISO at lower ISOs, the sensitivity is better, or the dynamic range is better in those cameras. But the second you go above that, the A7R and the A9 pull away from the A7 II. So that's a really interesting comment as well. So very similar low down, but as soon as you start to go into higher ISO, it pulls away. And you've got to remember that this camera is tailored to be running at high shutter speed. I mean, basically, or frames per second. Well, you want to be shooting at you know, high, like 1/1000th of a second. Your shutter speed has to be very fast because you want to stop motion. That's why this camera is designed to do that. So basically, you'll have to raise the ISO to get that shutter speed that you want. That's why this camera is going to be so strong in that area. And clearly it helps me, like for instance, when I'm doing weddings and things like that in low light, I don't have to be dragging the shutter so much. If I can't use flash, I can start to raise that shutter speed and just increase the ISO up to sort of compensate for that. Image quality, they're saying Sony's A7R offers an improvement overall. So clearly, if you're just talking about image quality itself, you still can't beat the A7R II. And I found that anyway. That's why I'm not selling my A7R II. 95 just said, just a shot in the, just shot some dark images and is remarkable. I know it is. It's working really, really well for me too. I've been so happy with using it in dark reception that I did the other day. It worked incredibly, and I've done some tests with a model shoot that I did, and plus I've shot also around the home very dark, and the focus and the low light results are really good. So I agree with that. But clearly, if you're dealing just about detail and stuff, you still can't beat the A7R II. But again, Sony are tailoring this camera at a different market than what the A7R II is. The A7R II is still going to be the best portrait camera that's out there if you're dealing just with full frame. Otherwise, if you were dealing with sports, wedding work, things like that, well, you can probably say that the A9 is the best camera easily now in those areas. So, it's something to consider if you're thinking about upgrading to that. Now, the conclusion is interesting. It's saying, no stranger to pushing the boundaries of digital camera design, Sony has delivered a powerhouse of a camera in the A9, which far outstrips the performance capabilities of most mirrorless cameras to date. The A9's key specifications of 20 frames per bursting second and full frame AEF tracking and no EF blackout, near complete autofocus frame coverage and silent operation is going to make this seriously attractive to any professional photographers. So basically they're saying that going head to head with the top end Canon and Nikon D5, they're basically saying that it's a better overall camera than those cameras. It may be weaker, or when I say weaker, it's so close it's not funny, like in the dynamic range to the Canon or the ISO to the D5. It's very, very close in those things, but it is a much better overall in those cameras. And clearly, I think it's also, if you watch Max Ura's video and things like that, you'll find that the focusing is better as well. So it's an interesting thing to sort of read, and I've been waiting for this to come out. I know some people will go and say that that they don't like DxO results, but I mean I'm not sure how accurate their results are either as compared to DPR review, but it's still another thing that's saying how good these cameras actually are. I mean, clearly all these three cameras are very, very good, but when people are saying that the Sony is overpriced, it's clearly not overpriced for what it's offering if you look at the results that it's actually giving. So I just wanted to bring that up with everyone. Like I said, this is only a really quick talk about this DXOMARK review that's come out. I didn't want to leave it till tomorrow. I just thought I'd get in early and have a discussion with you all on that. So if you did want to have a conversation about this, you can leave that down below, because I'll leave this online, and you can sort of throw some of your opinions down there as well, and I'll get back to it, or we can all talk about that and discuss it, what you think about this review. I'll put the link to this in the comment box down below, so that you can sort of have a look at this if you haven't looked at the results, and see what you actually think about the results too. I'm particularly interested to see that they've rated the dynamic range at 13.3, not 12 like DPR Review did. So that's an interesting difference of opinion between the two. I definitely could see that it was different to the A7R2, but I wasn't quite certain how much difference. But the A7R2, you still can pull more shadow detail out. That's a definite. But like I said to you earlier, that the A9 is completely workable in what it gives. So are there any questions just before I quickly go, guys? Because throw them in before I log off. If you wanted to know anything live before I'm actually finished. There's quite a few of you watching, so let me know if you have got anything. Otherwise, I'm just going to sign off, and that'll be it for the day. Like I said, you can leave the questions down below as well. But thanks for watching anyway, guys. 95 just said, just an update. I took this camera to Texas, El Paso, and it was 109 and probably didn't overheat either, did it? I haven't had any issues with overheating at all. I even put a video on. Check it out. 2 videos back that I put on. 5 ways to use an overheating A9. See what you think about that. It was a bit of fun. So 95 said outside and it didn't overheat at all. Like anything, you have to be a little bit careful with these cameras. It's a black box. It is quite small. If you're going to leave it completely in bright sunshine, it's like anything, it will get too hot to touch. If you left something outside for too long in the roaring sun, and then you try to probably make it work, you are going to have issues. You've just got to think a little bit smart about it, and not try and run it that way. Like I said, I've never had anything overheat. I did it initially with the Sony A6300. I got that camera replaced and the new one never overheated for me. And I haven't had an overheat since. I just thought I'd let you know about that. Any other quick questions before we go, guys? Otherwise, I'm going to sign off, and we'll see you next time for the next video. I think that's about it. Well, like I said, leave any down below and I'll get back to you, and we can have a chat again over those comments. So that's all, guys. Have a read of that and let me know what you think.